Welcome to this webinar. It's the third webinar of ETI, the Ethical Technology Institute. All the previous webinars, so the kickoff webinar and the webinar, the previous one, you can, with Lola Lauer, you can see on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. And this is the third one. And today I have the pleasure to introduce to you two amazing persons from the Flemish Knowledge Center Data and Society. So first of all, we have Willemien Laenens. She's a project and communication assistant. And then secondly, we have Jonne van Belle. She's researcher and project officer. And they both have been working the past year on developing a competency model that bundles actually the knowledge, skills, and attitudes you need to develop a responsible data-driven system. And in this webinar today, they will tell you more about it, and they will go in depth into the future-proof competencies for the development of ethical technologies. If you have any questions during the webinar, feel free to use the Q&A or the chat. So I will moderate those questions, and after the presentation, we will have a Q&A. So without further ado, I will hand over the microphone to the two ladies.
Right, thank you, Matthias, for the nice introduction, and welcome everyone. I'm sure if you have ever been to a presentation about ethical AI or responsible AI before, you have seen these images popping up where AI will take over our jobs and our brains and whatever, it's all bad. Or maybe you have been to a business conference before about new technology, and then you might recognize these images where AI is very somehow white and blue and very clean, and it will save the world, and there seems to be no place for humans anymore. So I want to quickly move on from these images today and take a more nuanced approach to how we talk about AI and about that data-driven systems. So Willemien and me, we are working for the Knowledge Center Data and Society. And with the Knowledge Center, we work on the legal, the ethical, and societal aspects of data-driven applications and AI. And instead of looking at AI in these two extremes, like it's either bad or good, and we should say yes to it or no to it, we'd like to find out how we can develop AI systems that are beneficial to society, that are responsible. And so today, we know that there are several companies and organizations that are also struggling with this question, the question of how. We know it might be important, but how can we translate all these abstract ethical reflections into our daily working practices of creating technologies? Just yesterday, for example, we sat together with MIMO, which is the Flemish Institute for the Digital Archives. And so they are archiving all the video and textual of all culture, media, and governments in Flanders. And they want to work on implementing AI into their systems. And they saw some ethical pitfalls, or they had some ethical questions already, but they asked us, but what do we do with it? How can we really make sure we do something about it? And we get more and more asked these questions by organizations and companies, like how can we make sure we work on responsible technologies? Because we think responsible technology is the future. This is a future where people and technology work together. So I have some nice images instead of the one I showed at the beginning. So this future where people and technology work together, where technology can support humans and technology is open and democratic and inclusive. This is what we see as a responsible technology. But we also know it doesn't appear just like that. The reality of creating technologies nowadays might not be suitable for creating responsible technologies, because it needs quite some discipline and quite some specific knowledge and skills to be able to make responsible technology. And so today we would like to tell you more about these competencies for creating responsible technology and how you can integrate them into your organization. So to start off, I made this claim of responsible technology is the future, but why do we think responsible technology is the future? And why do we think that every organization who is either developing technology or using technology should at least know about responsible technology and think about how they can integrate responsible processes into their daily working? So the first reason is the people or the audience of or the users of your technology, or maybe and even the people who are indirectly affected by the technology you're using or developing. Because we see that slowly more people get more aware of the good and the bad of technology. There's many whistleblowers nowadays stating all the things that are going wrong within the big tech companies, for example. People are more and more aware of their privacy and of how technology can be including and excluding certain people. So to avoid bad publicity and to make sure that your users will still be your users, it's important to work on responsible technology. The second reason is a bit more noble. It is that ethics is the right thing to do. Especially if your company has in their vision or in their mission that they want to make the world a better place, it's important to also think about these aspects of responsible technology within your company. But not only that, it's also more of a long-term strategy to keep your company alive for the years to come. Because the main reason to think about the long term is that the European Union is very active in translating ethical principles into legislation and laws. So with the years to come, you will have to comply with these things anyway. So it's better as a company to go ahead and think about responsible technology now before it is too late and you have to do it, and it might be difficult to change your processes later. But we also know that ethical AI and responsible AI is relatively new, and it's very academic, actually. There's no structured way of working. There's no industry standard. There's no uniform method that you can follow. So how can you actually make responsible technology? We see that there's interest from organizations, and they have it on their agenda. And we see several different initiatives taking place to make responsible technology. The first one is the rise of the digital ethicist, for example. The digital ethicist is someone you can hire to help the organization to watch over the development process from an ethical standpoint and to help the organization into setting up responsible technology working processes. The digital ethicist can also exist under a different name. Not everyone uses the same term, of course. But it's important to realize that technology is made not by one person. It's made by a team. It's a collaborative process. So it's important that also the UX designer and the data scientist, the developer and the project manager know what they are talking about and can understand or talk with the digital ethicist about what they have to do. The second initiative we see is the many ethical tools that are popping up from everywhere. They're often card sets or games which you can use to find the pitfalls or points of attention that you should work on within your technology. But also for those tools, how do you know how to use them? How do you know which tools of all these tools is good for you, is relevant to your project? How can you make sure that what you learn from this tool, that you can integrate it into your process, that you can really make sure it happens, that you do something about the pitfalls that you saw? These tools, they require also knowledge and skills to be able to work with them. The third initiative we see coming up is ethical boards. So there's a great interest in ethical boards, and they can really help an organization on advising on what to do and maybe what not to do, and discuss with an objective and often with outside experts different points of view on how to proceed with the technology. But again, also in this case, how do you translate these abstract discussions that you might have within the ethics board? How do you translate that to concrete practices on the work floor? So these are just 3 examples of ways we see that organizations are already working on making responsible technology. And I'm sure there's many different ways in which organizations are focusing on this topic. And we think they are really great initiatives. And we really applaud every company is already starting off in this way. But we also think there's still the glue missing between these parts. How can you make sure that you can really integrate what you learn from your digital ethicist, from your tools, from your ethical board? How can you integrate that in the day-to-day working on technology? Because making responsible technology requires constant deliberation, constant reflection. It requires that you keep following up on these ethical questions and ethical pitfalls. It means that you have to make difficult choices. You have to deal with uncertainties. And it's not easy to do this thing on a day-to-day basis if you are just a data scientist or a UX designer who has also deadlines to meet or other things to do. So to be able to create responsible technology, you really need some basic knowledge. Everyone who is working on the technology needs some basic knowledge, some basic skills, and some basic attitudes in creating responsible technologies. Oops. And what we try to do in the past year is we try to summarize all these different competencies into a competency model for creating responsible technology, which will be a guide for everyone working on technology to improve and to learn how to do it. And I will give the word to Willemien, who will explain more about that.
Okay, hi everyone. So as Jonne mentioned, the last year, about a year and a half, we try to map these competencies into a competency model. So the competency model really focuses on the knowledge, skills, and attitudes everyone who is involved in the development process needs to have. And I'm not saying that all the competencies in our model, that one person should have all the competencies in our model, but it is all the competencies should be present in the project team working on it, or everyone involved in the development process, because of course we're not all superhumans, so we don't expect that as well. But so the model is really focused on the ones working in the development process of a technology, but we mainly target the competency model towards human resources managers and team leaders. And why? That is because we saw some opportunities for the model that could be used for example, as a guide for a recruitment interview. So when a new employee when a possible new employee wants to join the company, for example, or the project team, then the human resources manager can actually use the model as a basis for that conversation, for that recruitment interview, to see what the knowledge, skills, and attitudes are that the person already has, and can also see what competencies he or she might be lacking or that can be further improved. So what we really did there as well is to create a very open competency model, in that sense that we still allow the human resources manager to actually come up with their own questions or to tweak the model or adapt the model according to the own needs, and for example also to the organization needs, because every organizations every organization also has different focus points or other things that are more important, for example, for them. So there, the model can really be seen as a sort of a basis for that recruitment interview, with still a lot of space to adapt it. Another use of the competency model is for team leaders. So then we mainly focus at a project team, but then the leader, where the model can be used as a basis for a discussion between the project team leader and the other team members. To also see, okay, if we are going to develop a new technological innovation, to actually see within the team if all the competencies described in the competency model are present in that team. And if not, for example, also look for additional trainings or maybe additional workforce that another person within the organization or external, of course, could actually join the team if some knowledge, skills, or attitudes are actually lacking. So this is a bit more about the use of the competency model. But now I think I have triggered you, and I will show you a bit of the competency model. So this is the model. This is how it looks like. As you can see, it has three main categories. The dark blue is for knowledge, the light blue is for skills, and then the green is for attitudes. And our competency model consists of those three categories and also of 13 competence groups, which are here visible with those icons actually on the model. And in those 13 competence groups, we have actually 40 specific competences. But of course, if we would also add these 40 competencies into this visual, it would be an overload. So this is just a smaller version, let's say, of the competency model. But we have also made an additional explanatory document wherein we really go deeper into the different categories, the competence groups, and the 40 specific competences, but where we also explain how we developed it. So what was the development process of this model, who was involved, and also how you can also use it. So what use we envision for this competency model. As I mentioned, it's still quite a big competency model. There are 40 competencies, and I will not tell you more about all these 40 competencies, because then we will need a presentation of 2 hours or maybe longer. But I will give you 3 examples of competencies that are in this model. I will give one example for knowledge, one for skills, and one for attitude. So you have an idea of what you can actually find in our competency model. So for the category of knowledge, we have the competence group of the impact of technology, by which we mean that employees should understand the mutual connection between a technology and its context. And that might be the societal context or the organizational context, economic context. And the specific competence there, this is just one of the competences we have under this competence group of impact of technology, is that an employee actually knows which social and economic factors influence a technology, but that also might influence the acceptance and the use of that technology. For example, think of the values and norms within an organization, and if that technology, for example, clashes with those values and norms, it might have some consequences, of course, as well for the acceptance and use of that technology. So this is one example of a knowledge competence. Then we have skills. In which we have the competence group of interdisciplinary cooperation, which, as the title also says, it's about employees who invest in partnerships with other team members or other professionals with a different background, with a different professional background, without also, how do you say it, without neglecting themselves, and also being very much aware of what they can deliver to the team and what they their strengths and expertise is. And a specific competence in this competence group of interdisciplinary cooperation is, for example, that an employee can actually translate, let's say, or explain very technical matter or very specific domain-specific terms to other team members in order to, for example, avoid misunderstandings or miscommunication. So it's really more about, stepping down from your level of expertise and trying to make clear to others who don't have that expertise to also explain it to them in a very comprehensible and understandable way. And then a last example of a competency is on the attitudes. And they are not all maybe all specifically related to developing responsible systems. As you could see here for the competence group of assertivity, which is also something that we all know, I think, about daring to speak up and to go to your team or team leader or organization when you see some undesirable situations or when you are not okay with certain actions that are being taken. And a specific competence here, for example, is indeed that you speak up, speak up when you disagree, and that you really step up, you go to your organization because you don't want them to make some unethical choices, or you don't want to, you just want to avoid misunderstandings. So this is, for example, not really a very technology specific related competence, but is very important, of course, because when an undesirable decision is being taken in the development process of the technology, this is also something that we want you to have, of course, to be able to speak up when you disagree. So this is a very small, like a teaser of the competency model. As I mentioned, there are in total 40 competences, but I hope I have triggered you and inspired you, and that you are inspired to also look more into the competency model and the explanatory documents. You can also find it on our website. It's unfortunately only available in Dutch, but we will upload an English version of the model soon. It will be around September, October. But if you are Dutch speaking, then you can already go to our website. If you are English speaker, if you're an English speaker, then I suggest you regularly check our website because it will be uploaded soon. Now you're probably also wondering how we actually developed this competence model. And I will tell you a bit more about this. We actually did several things. First of all, we organized several brainstorm sessions with human resources professionals to really dive deeper into the value or the added value of the competency model. So we really asked them, like, is this something that you want? Could this be useful in your working practice or not? If so, then how do you want it to look like so that it really fits also your habits of working? For example, do you want it to be a bit more open so you can adapt it according to your own needs, for example, during a recruitment interview? Or do you want it to be a bit more fixed, like that you cannot make much changes? But also in terms of format, do you want it to be more textual or more visual? So that's, we organized several brainstorm sessions to really also grasp if the added value of the model and also the practicalities of the model, how it could be used in practice as well. Then secondly, we also the model was also being reviewed by different specific job profiles or function profiles who are involved in the development process of a technology. So it's, for example, a designer, a data scientist, or a project team leader. And we really asked them to review the competencies, and if they agree with it, for example, because they work in that specific job, they work on the creation of technology. And if they also, for example, see if these competencies are indeed relevant or needed, or will become even more relevant in the future. For example, also if they thought some competencies were missing, then we added them in a later phase. So they really did they really reviewed, let's say, the content of the model. And then thirdly, we also had an advisory group. I think we came together 4 or 5 times during a year. And they really had the function of guiding us and coordinating us, and also steering also where we want to go to with the model. They, for example, advise us as well in the target, the goal that we wanted to reach with the model, but also, for example, the target group. They also looked specifically to the content of the competencies. So they really did they went through all the whole competence model and to check as well. And they all came from the domain of training or ethics or more development of technology. So this is a bit how we developed this model. I think it took us about 1 year with a lot of rework that we did. I think it has been changed for maybe 8, maybe 10 times. But this is how we actually approached it. But of course, we are not there yet. And this is indeed something that also Jonne mentioned previously, is that you can take several actions. You can see, for example, which competencies are available in your team, and also see, for example, if additional workforce is needed, or if trainings are needed, for example, or you could hire a digital ethicist. You can have an ethics committee. So there are several actions you can actually take in order to stimulate that reflection on your development process. And this is also something that the Knowledge Center, are very interested in as well. Because as Jonne also mentioned previously, there is no standard yet. There is no how to do or how to develop responsible technology. There is no guideline. There is no, voila, this is how you can do it. Step 1, step 2, step 3. This is not existing at the moment. So this is also something that we really are interested in how we can support organizations more in getting this structure, in getting this reflection moments regularly, and also then taking up, of course, those reflections or those points of attention in a structured way. For example, we are now looking into, or we are experimenting, this may be a better word. We are experimenting with a logging tool. So it's a logging tool where you log, as the name says, all the reflections you make during the development process. It can be ethical reflections, it can be reflections about inclusion, it can be about acceptance of my technology, it can be various on various topics, but that they are parked somewhere, so you don't lose track of them. And that's actually very important, because when they are parked somewhere, then the logging tool also helps you to actually appoint who is responsible for which points of attention. So you can also add tasks or actions to it, so you don't only park them, but you also make sure something is done with them as well. And it's a tool that we are experimenting with. And yeah, so this is just one example of how we are, how we are still looking in this topic on how we can support organizations more in developing responsible technologies. But I think my key message and the key message of our presentation is actually that reflecting about your development process, about the development process of a technology, and keeping in mind those societal, ethical, and legal aspects is not that hard. There is, of course, no standard yet, but we believe that that when it becomes part of your strategy or part of the organization strategy, and you are open to also change your work structure or workflow, then it is really something that you can go for it. I'm not saying that one ethical, like one brainstorm session is enough. That's not what I'm saying, but I think it's the key message here is really that when you are open to it and you really take these ethical reflection moments at heart of your organization, then you can really make some major steps and go forward. Voila, I think this is a bit what we tried to give you as a message and about our competency model. Voilà. Thank you, Jonne. Here are also our contact details. If you want any more information about a competency model, you can go to our website. As I mentioned before, it's only available in Dutch for now. But if we already have a draft English version, so if you are interested in that, please contact us via email, and then we can send you the draft version already. Voilà. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope it was interesting.
Okay. Thank you.
Join me.
Hi. Thanks a lot, Willemien and Jonne, for this very interesting topic. All the attendees, I now suggest if you have any questions, please put them in the chat or in the Q&A. So I will moderate them from now on, and I have already one question here. Question is, why should companies hire a digital ethicist?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah. I think we will answer the questions. I think always with two, if that's okay. But my reason why you should hire a digital ethicist, I'm not sure you should hire one. I mean, because a digital ethicist is a person who is taking the lead, then of course in creating responsible technologies, and I think it's very good, but it's not something that all organizations can do. I think it's more for bigger organizations, because they really have this mandate. They have this full-time job of digital ethicist, and I don't think it's feasible in every organization. So I'm not saying it's not necessary, but for smaller organizations, I mean, I think it's something that you can all do. I mean, you can all be together a digital ethicist. I think that's what we also try to say, is that it's not that difficult to have this ethical reflection. It just requires discipline and a way of thinking. And of course, you need some specific knowledge, skills, and attitudes. But it's not that we expect one person to have all this. And it's really something that you can share as a team, and as a team also be aware of, what are maybe some points of attention, and how can we diminish them? How can we approach them? I think it's also a shared responsibility.
Yeah, and I think that being said, it could be a good idea to then still hire a digital ethicist as someone who has the responsibility to make this transition within the organization. Someone who can really set up these processes and help everyone in the company to learn about what do we need to do to be able to do to create ethical technologies.
Yeah.
If that answers the question.
Yeah, definitely. I have another question here from the attendees, from Peter. So according to Peter's opinion, it all starts with awareness on several levels within the organization. How does your model support this early phase of awareness?
Yeah, we didn't go that much into detail about all the competencies, but there is a specific competence group that really focuses also on skills or I think it's a skill. No, I think it's a. I think it's a skills category that really focuses on that's more actually for team leaders to really focus more on how are you also, for example, going to deal with transition or changes within your company, and that they some skills we also mentioned there is that they also have to speak up, for example, to the management when some roads, let's say, or some decisions are being made that are not supported as well. So I don't know if that's really an answer to your question, but I'm going to look for them as well.
Yeah, I think indeed the specific competencies for team leads are more focused on this early stage for setting up the transition towards more responsible technology.
Yeah, but we do agree awareness is a big, that's one of the biggest things actually, but that's also something that when you, for example, also look at the digital ethicist function description for IKEA, that's also really something that you can read there as well. That's actually the role of a digital ethicist as well, to really create that awareness, not only on the management level, but also on the ones actually really working in the development process, on really having this kind of structure or this reflection of what are some attention points, and so to really make this like more of a standard procedure.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Another question I receive here is how can companies enable these competencies within their current staff or team they have?
I think, I don't think all, because we have 40 competencies and it sounds a lot, but I think a lot of those competencies are actually already present in a team. But of course, there are also some competencies which are a bit which look a bit more forward, of course. And I think one of the main things how you can enable this is to also first, I think as a company or a management, to say, okay, this is what we are going to do. This is what we strive for. This is our strategy. So everyone should make this reflection, but also then to really also as management also provide some trainings or retrainings or maybe some organize some brainstorm sessions that can then be organized externally or internally. There are enough ethical tools, as Jonne mentioned, to really gather those pitfalls. So I think those are two big things: openness of the management, and also giving, saying like, okay, this is our strategy, and okay, we will make time for you to actually learn more about responsible technology and to also improve your skills.
Okay, that answered the question. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I have another question, more with regards to the knowledge center. The question is that what are further actions that Knowledge Center Data and Society will take with regard to the topic of operationalizing ethics?
I think one of the things Willemien already mentioned is this logging tool. So where we are going to look into how can we make this process of making responsible technology more structured and more integrated in existing working processes. another idea we have for next year is to create kind of a community of professionals who are really actively working on ethics and technology, and so they can really share expertise with each other and best practices on how to operationalize ethics within an organization. And we have been doing this, but we will continue to test the existing, one of all the many existing ethics tools that exist, and to be able to guide organizations in what tools are good, what tools are less good or relevant for specific projects.
Yeah, there are so many tools, and it's hard to even know which tool will be of an added value for you. And of course, not every organization has the space and time to actually have several, let's say, tools sessions. And then at the end of this tool, it was actually not really good for us. So we also really, indeed, as Jonne mentioned, try to have some recommendations for example, if you are at the start of your project and you want to do first ethical assessment, for example, let's say, this might be the tools for you. So we really want to guide a bit more there as well, because yeah, it's a bit of an overload of tools.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's very hard to know what is actually worthwhile to you.
Yeah. Okay, very nice initiatives. Looking forward to see them happen and to collaborate also from the ETI point of view. Final question I have here is back to the competencies. Do you consider a specific competency more important than another? And can you prioritize competencies, or are they all equally important?
Oh, hard question.
I think in a earlier version of the competency model, we worked with different levels, and it became quite complicated. So the model as it is now does not have a prioritization of this competency is more important than this competency. But what we try to do is to explain or to make every competency very clear into up till what level do you need to know it to be able to create responsible technology. For example, I think the clearest example is the group around data and AI, where we say that everyone should have a basic understanding of what is data, what is AI. We formulated the competencies in such a way that people should be able to know the differences between the different AI specializations, but they don't need to be able to program an AI. So we try to integrate the level within the formulation of the competency itself.
But indeed, we don't have these competencies are the most important and these are less important. I think, also because we don't really, I think all of them are important. And because even, for example, the more attitudes, which are not always very related to technology, for example, as the assertivity example I gave, that you dare to speak up, you can say it might be less important in a competency model on technology, but I don't really agree with that statement as well, because I think it's as equally important, because you need, if you don't agree, you need to step up. So we especially avoided actually having layers, more important competences and less important competences.
Okay, good. Thanks for the answer. I'm all out of questions now. So it's been a very, very interesting presentation. I would urge all attendees and all later viewers to go to your website of the Knowledge Center Data and Society, check out their publications about the competency model, about the digital ethicists. It's very, very, very interesting. I want to thank you both, Willemien and Jonne, a lot for this presentation, as well as the Knowledge Center. It's, like I said, fully in line with our ambition as well to develop this kind of education around this topic. It also provides food for thought, I guess, for a lot of people, and hopefully it also triggers some people to take a very good look at these competencies and perhaps consider a job as a digital ethicist as well in the near future. So I've recorded this webinar, so we will make it accessible on our YouTube channel as soon as possible. And yeah, be sure to keep an eye on our LinkedIn page for further activities, as well as the webpage of the Knowledge Center. So thanks a lot, thank you, and I wish you all a pleasant day and a very lovely weekend.
Yeah, thank you as well for the opportunity of presenting our model here.
You're welcome.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.